The cold metal floor of the research vessel felt strange beneath Lee Minho's bare feet. The 8-year-old boy sat in the corner of his small prison, hugging his knees to his chest. His dark eyes watched the tall, thin creatures that walked past his cell every few hours. They had blue skin that seemed to shimmer under the bright lights and long fingers that moved like water when they talked to each other. Minho did not understand their words, but he could hear the excitement in their voices when they looked at him. It made his stomach feel sick with worry. 3 days ago, everything had been normal. He was traveling with his family on the big colony ship called Hope's Dawn. They were going to start a new life on a planet far from Earth. His mother had been reading him a story about brave space explorers when the alarms started screaming. Pirates had attacked their ship. The memory made Minho's chest tight. He remembered his father pushing him into the small escape pod. "Be brave, little tiger," his father had said, using Minho's favorite nickname. "We will find you." Then the pod door had closed and Minho was alone in the dark, floating through space. He had pressed the red emergency button like his parents taught him. The small beacon in his pod was supposed to call for help, but instead of rescue ships from Earth, these strange blue creatures had found him first. Dr. Veltara stopped outside the boy's cell and made notes on her electronic pad. The creature was small, even for what she thought was a young alien. Its skin was a pale brown color and black hair covered the top of its head. Most interesting were its eyes. They seemed to show complex emotions that surprised her. "The specimen appears to be adapting well to containment," she said to her assistant Kexler. "Its stress levels have decreased since the first day." Kexler nodded, his long neck bending forward. "Should we begin the intelligence tests today?" "Yes. I want to know exactly how developed this species is. The Galactic Council will want detailed reports before we can classify it properly." Neither scientist knew they were looking at a human child. In their databases, Earth was listed as a recently discovered world with friendly traders. The few humans they had met were adults who came to sell goods or make business deals. They seemed peaceful and simple compared to other space-traveling species. No one had ever seen a human child before. Minho watched the blue creatures talking. He was a smart boy, and he had already started to notice patterns in their sounds. Some words they said often, especially when they pointed at him. He was beginning to understand that they thought he was just an animal. This made him angry but also scared. His parents had taught him about stranger danger, but these strangers were not even human. They lived among the stars and had technology that seemed like magic. How could an 8-year-old boy from Earth make them understand he was not a pet or a lab rat? The cell door opened with a soft hiss. 2 guards in silver uniforms came in, followed by Dr. Veltara. She held a small device that made beeping sounds when she pointed it at Minho. "Hello, little one," she said in her own language, her voice gentle like she was talking to a scared animal. "We will not hurt you. We just want to learn about you." Minho pressed himself further into the corner. He did not understand her words, but her tone reminded him of how people talk to his neighbor's dog. It made his face hot with embarrassment and fear. The doctor set up a small table with colorful blocks and strange puzzle pieces. She gestured for Minho to come closer, making encouraging sounds. When he did not move, one of the guards reached for him. "No!" Minho shouted in Korean. The first word he had spoken since his capture. "Don't touch me." The aliens froze. Dr. Veltara's eyes grew wide. The sound the creature made was clearly a word, not just a noise. It had meaning and emotion behind it. "Did you record that?" she whispered to Kexler. "Yes, doctor." The vocal pattern showed definite linguistic structure. Minho realized his mistake too late. Now they knew he could talk, even if they did not understand his language. He saw the excitement in their faces and felt his heart beating fast like a trapped bird. The testing began gently, but Minho could sense it was just the beginning. They wanted to know what he could do, how smart he was, what made him special. But to them, he was still just a thing to study, not a little boy who missed his family and wanted to go home. Far away in space, his emergency beacon kept sending its silent message into the darkness. The signal traveled at the speed of light, calling for help from anyone who might be listening. It carried Minho's location and a simple message in human language. Child in danger. Please help. The beacon did not know that the message would soon reach ears that understood exactly what those words meant. It did not know that humans had a reputation among the stars for being peaceful traders and friendly neighbors. But most importantly, it did not know that humans would do anything to protect their children, even if it meant showing the galaxy a side of humanity that had been carefully hidden until now. In his cold cell, Minho closed his eyes and remembered his father's words, "Be brave, little tiger." He would be brave, he would survive, and somehow, he knew his people would come for him. 2 weeks had passed since Minho first spoke in his cell. The blue aliens had become more excited about their tests every day. They brought new puzzles, strange machines, and bright lights that hurt his eyes. Dr. Veltara watched him through the glass wall, making notes on her pad whenever he moved or made a sound. Minho had learned some of their words by listening carefully. He knew specimen meant him. He knew test meant they would make him do something difficult. And he knew interesting meant they were happy with what he did, which somehow made him feel worse instead of better. The tests started simple. They gave him colored blocks to stack and puzzles with missing pieces. Minho solved them quickly because his mother had played similar games with him at home. But when he finished fast, the aliens became more excited and brought harder puzzles. The specimen's problem-solving ability is remarkable, Dr. Veltara told Kexlar, as they watched Minho figure out a complex mechanical puzzle meant for adult minds. It's processing information at a rate we've never seen in a species this primitive. Kexlar nodded, but he looked worried. Doctor, are we sure it's primitive? Look how it handles our technology. On the screen, they watched Minho carefully take apart a small scanning device they had given him. His tiny fingers moved with purpose, separating wires and components like he understood what each part did. This was not random destruction. This was engineering. Minho was doing what his father had taught him. When you don't understand something, take it apart carefully and see how it works, his father had said while they fixed old electronics together. Everything has a pattern, little tiger. Find the pattern. The scanning device had a pattern. Minho could see how the energy flowed through the circuits, how the small crystals made light, how the metal pieces connected to make signals. It was more advanced than anything on Earth, but the basic ideas were the same. Dr. Veltara entered his cell with 2 guards. She looked nervous as she watched Minho holding the dismantled device. "How did you do this?" she asked in her language, pointing at the scattered pieces. Minho looked up at her. He had been practicing the alien words he heard most often. "I understand," he said slowly in her language, his child's voice making the alien sound seem strange. The doctor stepped backward so fast she almost fell. The guards raised their weapons, thinking the small creature might be dangerous. "It speaks our language," Kexler whispered through the communication device. "Doctor, this changes everything. Primitive species don't learn advanced languages in 2 weeks." But the tests continued, growing harder and stranger. They put Minho in rooms with no light to see how he reacted. They played loud sounds to test his hearing. They showed him pictures of different aliens to see if he could tell them apart. Each test was supposed to prove he was just a clever animal, but each result showed something more complex. The worst test was the maze. They put Minho in a large, metal box with walls that moved and paths that changed. Cameras watched from above as he tried to find his way out. Every time he learned the pattern, they changed it. Every time he got close to the exit, they moved the walls. Minho wanted to cry, but he remembered his father's words about being brave. Instead, he started to get angry. The anger helped him think more clearly. If they wanted to play games, he would show them what games really were. He began to study the cameras, learning where they pointed and when they moved. He listened to the sounds the walls made before they shifted. He felt the floor for vibrations that told him which direction the machinery was moving. Slowly, Minho started to predict the changes before they happened. On the 5th day in the maze, he did something that made the scientists stop their tests completely. Instead of trying to reach the exit, Minho found the control panel hidden in the wall. His small fingers worked on the alien technology until he figured out how to stop the moving walls. Then he walked calmly to the exit that could no longer move away from him. "This is impossible," Dr. Veltara said, staring at the security footage. "It reverse-engineered our maze control system. No primitive species could do that." "Maybe it's not primitive," Kexlar said quietly. Meanwhile, far across the galaxy, Captain Park Jiwoo stood on the bridge of his warship. The communication officer, Kim Nari, had just finished decoding the emergency signal they had been following for 3 weeks. "Sir, the beacon is definitely from one of our colony ships. Emergency Pod 7 from the Hope's Dawn. 1 child aboard. Age 8, name Lee Minho." Captain Park's face became hard as stone. He had children of his own back on Earth. The thought of any human child alone and scared in space made his chest tight with anger. "How long has the signal been active?" he asked. 26 days, sir, but sir, there's something else. The signal is coming from inside Zephyrian space. There are research species not known for hostility, but they collect specimens." Captain Park finished. He had read the reports about Zephyrian scientific expeditions that sometimes took creatures from other worlds for study. "Signal the fleet," he commanded. "All ships maximum speed to these coordinates." "And Kim Nari?" "Yes, sir." "Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we may need to remind the galaxy why humans are called Deathworlders." Dr. Veltara could not sleep. For 3 days, she had been staring at the test results that made no sense. The small creature in Cell 7 had done things that should be impossible for any primitive species. It had learned their language faster than most adult aliens. It had solved puzzles designed for advanced minds. Worst of all, it had started to modify their own technology. She walked to the observation window and looked at the child. Minho sat, on his small bed, working with pieces of broken equipment he had collected during the tests. His tiny hands moved with careful precision as he connected wires and adjusted circuits. The device he was building looked almost like a communication system. "Doctor, you need to see this," Kexler called from his computer station. "I've been checking our databases about the creature's species." Veltara turned away from the window. "What did you find?" "The ship where we found it came from a planet called Earth. The species is called human." "But doctor, look at this." Kexlar's screen showed files about human traders and diplomats. "These are not primitive beings. They have advanced technology, complex societies, and they've been traveling in space for decades." Dr. Veltara felt her blood turn cold. "But our initial scans showed low development. The child appeared to be from an undeveloped species." "Our scans were wrong," Kexler said quietly. "Or maybe we only scanned the child, not the technology around it. Doctor, if this creature is human, then we have made a terrible mistake." In his cell, Minho finished connecting the last wire to his makeshift device. He had been watching the aliens for weeks, learning how their equipment worked. The communication system he built from broken pieces was simple, but it might work. He pressed a small button he had created from metal scraps. Static filled the air, then slowly, words began to form. Minho spoke carefully into the device using the alien language he had learned. "My name is Lee Minho." His young voice echoed through the research bay. "I am human. I am 8 years old. I am not an animal. My people will come for me." Every alien in the research section stopped what they were doing. The voice was clear, intelligent, and filled with the kind of dignity that no primitive creature could possess. It was the voice of a child who knew exactly what was happening to him. Dr. Veltara ran to the cell. Through the glass, she saw Minho, holding his homemade communicator. His dark eyes looked directly at her, and she saw something that made her heart race with fear. She saw intelligence that matched her own, trapped in the body of a child who had been treated like an animal for nearly a month. "Child," she said through the intercom, using the word for young, intelligent beings instead of specimen. "Can you understand me?" "I have always understood you," Minho replied in perfect Zephyrian. "You called me specimen. You called me primitive. You put me in a cage and made me do tricks like a pet. But I am not a pet. I am a person. The research bay fell silent. Every scientist stared at the screens showing the small human child. The creature they had been experimenting on for weeks was not just intelligent, it was a child with feelings, fears, and the ability to think just like they could. "We did not know," Dr. Veltara whispered. "We thought you thought I was less than you," Minho said, his voice steady but sad. "You never asked who I was. You never tried to talk to me. You just took me and started your tests." Kexlar was frantically typing at his computer. "Doctor, I'm getting reports from our sensor stations. There are ships approaching our location. Multiple vessels, unknown design, but their technology readings are incredible." Captain Gorwin's voice crackled over the intercom throughout the ship. "All stations alert status. We have 7 unknown vessels approaching at high speed. Their technology appears to be more advanced than anything in our databases." Dr. Veltara looked at Minho through the glass. The child was sitting calmly on his bed, still holding his communication device. But now there was something different in his eyes. It was not fear or sadness anymore. It was hope. "They came," Minho said softly. "I knew they would come." "Who came?" Dr. Veltara asked, though she was beginning to understand. "My people," Minho replied. "Humans do not leave their children behind. Ever." The ship's alarms began to blare. Red lights flashed throughout the corridors as the unknown vessels took positions around the research ship. On the main bridge, Captain Gorwin stared at his screens in confusion and growing panic. "Sir, the lead vessel is trying to communicate," his communications officer reported. "Put them through." The main screen flickered, then showed the bridge of a ship unlike anything the Zephyrians had ever seen. The design was sleek and dangerous, built for both exploration and war. Standing in the center was a human male in military uniform, his face carved from stone and his eyes burning with cold anger. "This is Captain Park Ji-woo of the Terran Defense Force," the human said, his voice carrying across space like the promise of a storm. "You are currently holding one of our children. You have 30 minutes to return him unharmed, or you will learn why the galaxy calls us Deathworlders." Dr. Veltara felt her legs become weak. They had not just captured an animal for study, they had tortured a human child. And now the child's people had come to take him home. In his cell, Minho smiled for the first time in weeks. He could hear the fear in the aliens' voices, the panic in their movements. They were finally beginning to understand what they had done. His father had been right. Someone always came for family. The main screen of the research vessel filled with the image of Captain Park Ji-woo. His dark eyes seemed to look directly through the camera at every person on the Zephyrian ship. Behind him, the bridge of his warship showed organized efficiency and deadly purpose. Other humans in military uniforms moved quietly at their stations, their faces showing the same cold anger as their captain. Captain Gorwin tried to make his voice sound calm and friendly. His tentacles shook slightly as he spoke. "Honorable Captain Park, welcome to our research vessel. There seems to be some confusion about—" "There is no confusion," Captain Park interrupted, his voice cutting through the alien's words like a blade. "You have taken a human child. His name is Lee Minho. He is 8 years old. Return him now." Dr. Veltara stepped forward on the bridge, her blue skin pale with fear. "Captain, please understand. We did not know the child was from an intelligent species. Our databases showed humans as peaceful traders. We thought—" "You thought what?" Captain Park's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow sounded more dangerous than shouting. "You thought it was acceptable to experiment on what you believed was a primitive child? You thought torture was justified because you assumed he could not think or feel?" The word torture hit the Zephyrian crew like a physical blow. They had called their work research, studies, behavioral analysis. But when this cold-eyed human said the word torture, they suddenly saw their actions as they really were. "Officer Kim," Captain Park said without turning away from the screen. "Show them the medical readings from the child's location." Kim Nari pressed buttons at her station. The screen split to show data streaming from sensors pointed at Minho's cell. The readings showed stress hormones at dangerous levels, signs of malnutrition, sleep deprivation, and psychological trauma that would take months to heal. These readings, Captain Park continued, show what you have done to an 8-year-old boy, a child who has been away from his family for almost a month, a child who trusted that adults would protect him, not hurt him. Captain Gorwin's voice became very small. We will return the child immediately. This was a mistake. A terrible misunderstanding. Yes, you will return him, Captain Park agreed. But first you need to understand exactly what kind of mistake you have made. The screen changed to show the space around the research vessel. 7 human warships surrounded the Zephyrian ship in a perfect formation. Each vessel was sleek and powerful, their hulls reflecting the light of nearby stars. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. These ships, Captain Park explained, represent less than 1% of the Terran Defense Force. We have fleets in every sector of human space. We have weapons that can crack planets and shields that can stop stars. We have soldiers trained, from birth to fight in any environment, against any enemy. The Zephyrian crew stared at the display of military power surrounding them. In their databases, humans were listed as Level 3 technology, peaceful traders who preferred commerce to conflict. The ships on their screens showed technology that was easily Level 8 or higher. But Captain, Kexler said weakly, your people are known as peaceful. You trade, you explore, you make friends with other species. You have never shown aggression. Captain Park's expression did not change. We are peaceful by choice, not because we are weak. We trade because we prefer to build rather than destroy. We explore because we seek knowledge, not conquest. We make friends because we believe the galaxy is better when we work together. He paused, and his voice became even colder. But when someone hurts our children, you see a different side of humanity. The side that conquered a death world. The side that survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters that would have destroyed weaker species. The side that will burn down galaxies to protect what we love. In his cell, Minho listened to the conversation through his makeshift communicator. He felt proud hearing Captain Park's strong voice, but also sad. He did not want the aliens to be hurt, even though they had hurt him. He was just a child, but he understood that this moment would change everything. Dr. Veltara was crying now, her tears falling like small blue drops on the metal floor. We are sorry, she whispered. We did not understand. We will never make this mistake again. No, Captain Park said firmly. You will not. Because after today, every species in the galaxy will know exactly what happens when humans are pushed too far. They will know that we keep our peaceful nature only as long as our families are safe. He leaned forward and his image filled the screen. You have 1 hour to prepare the child for transfer. He will be examined by our medical team. If we find evidence of permanent harm, if we discover that his trauma will last for years, then we will have another conversation. And that conversation will not be as pleasant as this one. The communication ended, leaving the Zephyrian bridge in silence. Captain Gorwin looked around at his crew, seeing fear and shame in every face. Prepare the child for immediate transfer, he ordered quietly, and send a message to the Galactic Council. Tell them we need new protocols for first contact situations. Tell them the humans are not what we thought they were. Dr. Veltara wiped her tears and walked toward Minho's cell. She had to face the child she had treated as an animal and somehow find the words to apologize for the unforgivable. The docking bay of the research vessel was filled with nervous energy as Dr. Veltara walked beside Minho toward the airlock. The boy moved slowly but steadily, his small hand clutching a bag containing the few belongings the aliens had allowed him to keep. His homemade communicator was tucked safely inside, along with a picture of his family that had survived the escape. Pod crash. Captain Park waited on the other side of the airlock, flanked by 2 human medical officers and a female diplomat. When the doors opened and Minho stepped through, the captain immediately knelt down to the boy's eye level. Hello, Minho, Captain Park said gently in Korean. My name is Park Jiwoo. We have come to take you home. Minho looked up at the tall man in uniform. After weeks of being surrounded by blue aliens who spoke in strange voices, hearing his own language felt like drinking cool water after crossing a desert. Uncle Park, Minho said, using the respectful term for older men. I knew someone would come. I was brave just like my father taught me. Captain Park's stern expression softened slightly. Yes, little brother, you were very brave. Braver than most adults could be. He stood up and gestured to the medical team. These doctors will check to make sure you are healthy. Then we will call your parents and let them know you are safe. As the medical team gently examined Minho, Captain Park turned to face Dr. Veltara. The alien scientist stood at the edge of the docking bay, her head bowed in shame. Doctor, Captain Park said, his voice returning to its cold military tone. What you did to this child will not be forgotten. But because he survived, because he showed the strength that all humans carry, I will honor his wish that no harm comes to you or your crew. Dr. Veltara looked up in surprise. The child spoke for us. During the transfer, he asked that we not punish you too harshly. He said you were wrong, but that you were also afraid and confused. Captain Park's eyes narrowed. An 8-year-old boy showed more wisdom and mercy than trained scientists, remember that. Meanwhile, news of the incident was spreading across the galaxy faster than light-speed communications could carry it. Ambassador Choi Suna stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Council, her diplomatic uniform crisp and her voice carrying to every corner of the great assembly hall. Honorable delegates, she began, today you have learned something important about humanity. For years we have traded with you, explored alongside you, and shared knowledge with you. We have been your friends and partners. She paused, looking around the hall filled with representatives from dozens of species. But friendship should never be mistaken for weakness. Peace should never be confused with helplessness. The Zephyrian, Representative Ambassador Thelkaran, stood up from his seat. Ambassador Choi, we understand that our research team made a grave error. But surely this incident could have been resolved through diplomatic channels. The display of military force was necessary. Ambassador Choi interrupted. When a human child cries for help, when one of our young is in danger, diplomacy takes second place to rescue. This is not negotiable. This is not a cultural preference. This is who we are. On the main screen, she showed footage of human colony ships, exploration vessels, and trading posts throughout the galaxy. You see us building homes, schools, and peaceful communities. You see us as merchants and scientists and diplomats. The image changed to show the human warships that had surrounded the research vessel. But never forget that the same species that builds schools also builds weapons. The same hands that plant gardens can also fight wars. We choose peace because we understand the true cost of violence. Back aboard the Indomitable, Minho sat in the medical bay while Dr. Song Hae-un finished her examination. The child's physical injuries were healing, but the psychological damage would take much longer to repair. Will I have bad dreams? Minho asked quietly. Dr. Song smiled kindly. Maybe for a while, but you know what? Every time you have a bad dream, remember that you were strong enough to survive. Remember that you built a communicator from broken pieces. Remember that you never gave up hope. And remember, Captain Park added, entering the medical bay, that your people will always come for you. No matter how far away you are, no matter how dangerous the journey, we will always come. 3 days later, Minho was reunited with his parents on New Sol Colony. The tears, the hugs, and the joy of the family coming back together were recorded by news crews and broadcast across human space. But more importantly, they were watched by alien species throughout the galaxy. The Galactic Council passed new laws about first contact procedures. The Zephyrian research protocols were completely rewritten. Dr. Veltara was assigned to work on cultural sensitivity training for all scientific expeditions. But the most important change was not written in any law or protocol. It was the quiet understanding that spread from species to species, from world to world, carried in whispered conversations and careful diplomatic notes. Humans were not just peaceful traders anymore. They were a species that would cross the galaxy to save one child. They were beings who chose kindness but were capable of incredible violence. They were friends who would share their knowledge and enemies who would never stop hunting you. Captain Park stood on his bridge, Watching the stars wheel past as they headed back to Earth, Kim Nari approached with the daily reports. "Any news from the frontier colonies?" he asked. "All quiet, sir. Word has spread about what happened. Several species have sent messages saying they want to improve their relations with humanity." Captain Park nodded. The galaxy was a safer place for human children now. That was worth more than any amount of fear or respect their display of power had earned. In the vast darkness between stars, humanity continued its expansion. They carried with them the same dual nature that had brought them from caves to starships, infinite capacity for both creation and destruction, guided always by an unbreakable rule. No one touches the children,